Hijack, Apple TV joins Roku, and F1. This is TV Plus Talk on MacVoices.
Hello and welcome to TV Plus Talk, where we discuss all things Apple TV and that whole entertainment sphere around Apple. I'm Charlotte Henry. He is Chuck Joyner. Heya.
Hey, Charlotte. Good to see you as
How's
always.
things?
Seems like they're good. They're good. It seems like we just did one of these, and yet there's more Apple TV news to talk about.
There's some quite interesting things to talk about, actually. I mean, you and I obviously always think it's interesting. That's why we do this show. But they're quite different things to what we normally talk about. And I'm kind of intrigued in that. I do want to talk to you, though, about Hijack Season 1, because I blazed through it, really enjoyed it, finished it. I don't think I discussed that on the last show.
No,
and if I did, sorry for repeating myself.
You were still working on it. And I'm anxious to hear how you feel Season 1 wrapped up, since Season 2 is already out there. The episodes are starting to drop.
Yes, and I'm going to be diving into that as well. So Season 1 was great. They finally dealt with the one bit that annoyed me, because they did bring in the Home Secretary. So I was very pleased about that. The politics lined up properly. The ending was as melodramatic as we thought it would be, but quite clever, of Season 1. You know, always with these shows, there's a slight bit of surrealism, right? I'm sure that, like, some of it wouldn't have played out quite that way. Whatever. It's a TV drama. It's a thriller. I really enjoyed it. I thought the episodes were timed and paced pretty well. There was no episode, I don't know if you recall this, where you felt, oh, that was 10 minutes too long. They could have cut that. I don't think I felt that with any episodes, and you can't always say that about thriller series.
No, I agree completely. And the other thing I liked about it was that it concluded the story, and yet there's room for what now we know is Season 2. So there are no cliffhangers. They're not, there's not that abrupt ending, and you think, well, it'll never be resolved, which I really have come to dislike a lot. There's some great cliffhangers out there if you know that the next season is coming, for sure. But the ones that, leave you there and as sort of almost a demand for the organization funding it to bring another session or another season, I just find that annoying, because then if it doesn't have another season and you end on that cliffhanger, I just feel completely frustrated.
It's that whole Marvel, cutscene thing, isn't it? Yeah, after credit scene. I think Apple actually, to be fair, does this particularly well, where it gives itself the choice either to carry on or cut the show. I think actually, if you think about it, if we go through a lot of the shows that you and I like, it is particularly good at that. Agreed.
And if not, like we saw Myth Quest, they gave it an option to at least try to wrap things up a little bit instead of just ending on that cliffhanger. Which
coming back to it, yeah.
Yeah, I really respected that a lot, because it may not have been able to wrap up everything, but at least it gave you a sense of some kind of closure.
Yep. Well, Rob McElhenney was quite had a big weekend here in the UK. I don't know if you've been following this.
I have not.
Because he, as you know, owns the football club Wrexham FC, and they did the whole Welcome to Wrexham thing on Disney. Well, it was the FA Cup this week, which is a club competition where basically anyone can play anyone and FA registered. That's the most basic way of describing it. So you don't need to be in the same leagues to play each other. You can get drawn against whoever you want, whoever the draw does. So Wrexham, who are now have gone from all the way since Rob McElhenney and Ryan Reynolds took over the club, they have gone from this is a spoiler for Welcome to Wrexham, but come on. They have gone from being what we call the non-league side. So that's the 4th, 5th tier of English football. Yes, the Welsh team play in English football. We're not getting into that. They've gone all the way from that to the 2nd tier, which is one tier below the Premier League. And this weekend in the FA Cup, they got drawn against Chelsea, former European champions, former Premier League champions, massive, massive club. And they gave them a really good run for their money. They lost in the end in extra time 4-2. But every cut shot was of Rob McElhenney and Ryan Reynolds going nutty in the ground, and the whole thing. It was a very dramatic afternoon. So Mythic Quest lives on in Wrexham, and Sky Sports are also going to get the pair of them to comment on a game as well. So they fly here quite regularly. But anyway, that was my Mythic Quest reference. So he's still there, he's still around, and I rather enjoyed seeing them in action. But it's a good example of what you're saying, actually, about Mythic Quest and how that was left. I obviously wanted a new season, but yeah, you're right about how that was left. And I think generally it's quite an interesting way that Apple do this, isn't it?
Think about slow horses. Everyone ends. But
I often think about slow horses.
Yeah, yeah. Everyone ends. The story ends in the season, but it doesn't feel like there's a lot of finality to it. There's enough finality, but not absolute. And I think I felt that way about Down Cemetery Road as well.
Which you've told me to watch and is on the hit list.
Yeah, and that's not a spoiler. In fact, if anything, that might encourage you, because it does conclude, but there's enough there that maybe if they want to bring it back, they will.
I've got another one for you.
Please.
Which you recommended me, Prime Target, which we both watched and very much enjoyed. Think of the ending of that. Again, that won't be a spoiler, but it's self-contained as a season, but also you could bring back the characters and continue the show. The one thing I'm intrigued about actually with Hijack, I mean, I obviously know the premise of season 2. That's not that's not hidden from anyone. That's public. I'm quite intrigued how the same character can keep ending up in Hijack situations. That's all I'm going to say. Listen, I'm always happy to have more Idris Elba. Who isn't? But I think that's going to be an interesting thing to navigate with this show and this format.
But you just said it a minute ago, Charlotte. It's a TV show, okay? I mean, you have to think about the Die Hard movies. I mean, how many times could Bruce Willis, find himself in those situations? It's just the way it is, and so you have to go with just a little bit of a forgiveness on premise.
Yeah. I'm very pleased we're discussing this in March, not December or January, so we don't need to discuss if Die Hard is a Christmas movie or not. We do, though.
Send your emails to Charlotte.
Absolutely do not. We do have to discuss Roku, though, because Apple TV is now on its premium subscriber partners. I'm not particularly familiar with Roku, but this sounds quite a significant move to me in a couple of different ways. What's your take?
I'm with you, and I'm anxious to hear your thoughts on it. I was surprised to see it because a Roku has you can buy a Roku box. You can sort of like an Apple TV box. You can have a TV that has the Roku system embedded in it as its operating system, which I happen to have, although I don't use it. But it's there, and I could use it if I wanted to.
Apparently, sorry to interrupt, but according to Deadline, the interface, the Roku interface, which is what you're talking about, is on 1/3 of all smart TVs in North America.
I did not know that. I know that they had. I mean, back when operating systems in TVs were becoming a thing. For a long time, a TV was a TV, and if you had an interface, it was probably your set-top box. And I know Roku sort of came in, and they were hedging their bet on being able to sell you their set-top box versus your cable TV box, versus having it built into the TV. And so I think, and somebody correct me if I'm wrong, but Roku, Google TV. And I'm drawing a blank on the third. I think there's 3 of them that are primary out there.
There's Samsung TV.
Samsung TV, yes. So, there are a lot of different now, again, operating systems inside of TVs. And is it a good idea? I don't know. I've had decent experience with the Roku. I've had not so great experience with Google TV, not horrible. I've had decent experience with Fire TV. Again, each one has its quirks, and each one has its agendas, if you will. And Apple TV is no different. That has its agenda of trying to get you to watch Apple TV shows as opposed to some of the others. But that's fine.
So there's quite a few bits I want to jump in on this. First of all, I want to tell you a story that appears in my book and is about Samsung TV, just because it makes me laugh, but also I think possibly underlines your point about how these companies want to prioritize their, obviously their first party interfaces and content. Did you know that Samsung TV also appears on at least one of its models of fridges? Did you know this? I discovered this whilst researching what streaming was. You can get a Samsung fridge with Samsung TV built into it.
I think I remember that. I'd forgotten about it, but I think I remember that, but I don't recall it being a Samsung operating system in the TV. So that's good information.
Oh, sorry. By operating system, I mean there is literally its proprietary TV system is in there. I don't mean it in the terms of like iOS 26 or whatever we're on. So there's that, which I just found interesting. Second of all, your point about prioritization is well made. Every time you go into the Apple TV app, we all know it's pushing Apple TV, the system. Why do they do this to us? The system, the subscription service, they're obviously pushing that as opposed to whatever else it's connected to. But the thing that really jumped out at me when I read this story, which, as I say, was broken exclusively by a deadline, was how Apple is now playing nice in TV with third parties. Now, you've covered Apple. I've covered Apple for a fair amount of time. You've covered it, dare I say, for a bit longer than me. And the one thing we've always known about Apple for a very, 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 very long time is that it doesn't tend to play nice with others, particularly when it comes to services. But with TV, that's completely different. I'm thinking about the deal that you could get. You can subscribe to Apple TV through Amazon Prime Video. That would have been unthinkable not that long ago in the world of Apple. And this Roku deal, to me, feels very similar to that.
I agree with everything you said, and I think that Apple is being mature.
Thank you very much for this week's show. That's it. We're done.
Yeah, it doesn't happen often, right? No, I think Apple's being very mature in recognizing that this is a whole different landscape. And as much as they like to control things and control everything they can, this is, I'm not sure it's quite the Wild West, but it's something that has evolved so quickly over the past, let's say, 5 to 7 years. The rise of operating systems and TVs, the move away from cable and move into streaming, not just for movie services, but for all sorts of original content. The large screens versus small screens, where more people seem to be not necessarily sitting down on the sofa to consume their content on the big screen, but are consuming content on smaller screens, including this small screen. It's crazy. And so the more places they can get their content out there, they are playing on a much more level field than trying to say, okay, you have to come over to our device to consume our content.
But am I right in saying that's very not Apple?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And the other thing, so to me, this is all just a play for eyeballs, right? They just want to get their shows in as front of many eyeballs as possible. It's not more complicated than that, is it?
No, but also just the idea that it's going to pull people to their shows and maybe to their service.
Because the whole thing about Apple, and I often come back to this point when we talk about Apple TV, which obviously we do every fortnight, is it has stuck to the originals. It has not got into the catalogue game. And these moves, first Prime Video, now this Roku deal, makes me think, because obviously they thought, right, we'll have only originals, they'll be really good, so people will have to pay for Apple TV, and they will come to the Apple TV app, whether it's on their big screen, whether it's on their Mac, whatever, on their phone, and they will watch our original shows because that's the only place you can get them, right? And now they've stuck to one part of that, but they've softened on the other bits. Because if you notice, the deal with Amazon wasn't reversed, was it? You can't get Prime Video through the Apple TV app. You can subscribe to lots of other things through Apple TV, through the app. I'm sorry, it's diversion. I'm sending a letter to Tim Cook and Eddie Q. They need to have 3 different names for all these different things. 4 different things now. Side point. But anyway, I return. What I'm saying is, Apple TV, the app, wants to be a platform. If you look at it, it does want you to take in other things while staying in Apple's app. But Prime Video is not one of the things in there. And that's kind of interesting. Obviously, Roku is not a comparison. You can't bring in Roku through Apple TV. Roku is an environment of its own. But it just interests me, and this Roku story got me thinking about it, how the way Apple is navigating this brave new world.
Well, and I'll throw one more piece in, and that is that, and I think you alluded to it, but originally you had to buy Apple TV to consume Apple TV content. And as prices came down for the other boxes, the Apple TV became less attractive because now you had, not only were you paying for the content, you had to pay a premium for the box. And so
you never needed a box to. The app has always been available on various TVs. You've never only needed the box to be able to get Apple TV.
Oh, maybe I'm misremembering, but I thought that originally that was.
For example, I had previously on a PlayStation 4 accessed Apple TV.
Okay, I will happily stand corrected.
Well, I'll have to check the timeline, but obviously it's always been available on Apple devices of any kind. Goes without saying.
Absolutely.
But I'm pretty sure it's it's been on TVs and things like a PlayStation for quite a while. But I think the point. But I think the point you're making does still stand, that Apple has loosened its ties, both in terms of hardware and software.
I'm checking ChatGPT now because maybe I'm wrong. Okay. So according to ChatGPT, when the Apple TV set-top box first launched in 2007, the only way to use Apple's Apple TV experience, watching purchased iTunes movies and TV shows on a television, was through the Apple TV hardware.
Sorry, I thought you were talking about what we used to call TV Plus. Yes.
Oh, okay.
The software as an environment, you're quite right. I'm talking about the TV app and subsequent service.
And you are right, because then a little farther down, when Apple launched Apple TV Plus in November 2019, it was not restricted to the Apple TV box.
Right.
Okay. So we're both right. We're both right.
Perfect. That's what we like. That's what I thought, because I thought I'd always got it on third-party things as well. But as I say, I think your point stands about the loosening of Apple. So I don't know if I've told this before. I might have told this you off air, even if it's not on air. When I got a new TV for my living room, I moved the quote-unquote old TV to my bedroom and upgraded it. I bought a £25 Fire Stick. I didn't buy the £100, whatever it is, Apple TV box. I bought the Fire Stick. It has access to Apple TV on it. And that was that. And it's all of these third-party places where you're now being able to access Apple services.
Right. And, of course, we could take a left turn here, and I'm only going to go so far, I promise. But it makes, as far as a purchasing decision goes, if your interest is content, then while I personally find the Apple TV box a better experience than pretty much anything else. If my interest is purely content, I'm with you. I'm going to go with the Fire Stick. And that way I can access not only the Apple TV content, but also all the other content that is available
I've got every app
in an affordable hardware device. So
it was so cheap.
Yeah. So should the Apple TV box not just provide the Apple TV service, but also become a bit more of a gaming machine or add some other value? That's a whole nother discussion for another show. But the discussions are out there as to, are we going to see an upgraded box that will add some of those things?
I'll throw this in there, we'll have to move on, but I've also, considered turning a Mac Mini, a 2018 Mac Mini, into essentially an Apple TV box. Anyway, this weekend, the Formula One began on Apple TV. It was the start of the Formula One season. Now, this is not a sport you and I spend a huge amount of time watching, but it was a big deal. This was a big deal for Apple. It was a very big deal for Apple, and they put a lot of resources into this. And interestingly, I don't know if you've had, and I've missed something, I haven't heard the usual set of complaints when a new service starts. Now, we should put in mind that the Formula One is only shown in America on Apple TV. Here in the UK, it's Sky. I'm not sure where else it is across the board. But it was a big acquisition for Apple to get these rights. It's all part of Formula One, I think, trying to expand in the US. I'll just read you a quick quote from Eddie Q, actually, who obviously runs services at Apple. He said, "This weekend marks the start of a new era for Formula One fans in the US. We're excited to bring every moment of the season to Apple TV, delivering on an immersive experience designed entirely around fans. Formula One's growth in America has been extraordinary, and we're proud to build on that momentum, combining the power of Apple TV with the broader Apple ecosystem to create even more ways for fans to connect with the sport." So the interesting thing here is they streamed it in 4K Dolby Vision, which is, I think, that's a huge advancement. There's 5.1 surround sound from the Apple TV app. So if you had the Apple TV 4K, smart TVs, Google 4 TV and other devices. So they've put resources into the presentation and the technological backing of this. Started in Australia, so the timing wasn't great. So maybe people haven't got into it yet. Anyway, interesting they're putting so much technology behind it. They obviously think if Apple's going to do it, it's got to look really good.
And I did not have this experience because I don't own a Vision Pro, but Marty Genzia said...
I was literally about to say to you, Vision Pro. That was every thought, the word was going through my head. Go, I want to hear your take on this.
Yeah, well, it's not my take. This was Marty's take, because you can apparently, in the Vision Pro, switch angles. You can get some onboard cameras in the cars. And he described it as just game-changing, just, amazing. Because you really feel like you're there as opposed to just watching it on a regular screen. So, and I know he may have influenced at least one or two other people to get a Vision Pro specifically for this because they're already fans of F1 racing. So, and it made me think about it too. It's like, okay, I've been excited about F1 after the movie because I learned a lot about the sport from the movie. And so this would be even better to be able to, jump in the car and drive or ride, I should say. It's what we've been waiting for from Apple TV in sport. And interesting that they picked F1 to do it, but still they've done it. And I sincerely hope it continues and they keep going to other sports as well.
So remind me, you don't have a Vision Pro, do you?
I do not.
Nor do I. I think I've been rude about the device on this show. But as I was reading that Eddie Q statement, as I was laying out the tech specs, all I was thinking was Vision Pro.
Yeah.
Think about it, even the device, it's almost like goes around your head like a driver's helmet in Formula One. They could put you in the car.
Right.
Literally, as I was reading that was exactly what came to mind.
Yeah, and listen, no disrespect intended to any of the racing disciplines, but at some point it does become a bit repetitive, and it's hard to really get a sense of just how exciting it can be. And if you've ever been to a race, you know it's a lot more exciting in person, even though you're seeing less of the actual race. You're getting a sense of what's really happening. And so,
Is that because of the food and drink on offer?
Well, that doesn't hurt, but just the speed that is going, and what it must be like. Now you have the chance to potentially experience to a greater degree what it's like. So I'm excited about this. I'm excited for F1, and especially though the Apple Vision Pro aspect of things.
I think that has to be right. Look, even if you're not watching with a Vision Pro, because most people don't have a Vision Pro, not many people have one, they obviously still want it to look good. If you've got a good TV, they want to present it to you well. If you've got a good sound system, they want it to sound good. But clearly, this is also going to be designed as Vision Pro content. Interestingly, you can watch the race through the F1 TV app. I believe that's in the US, which also remains available in the US, but you have to have an Apple TV subscription. So let's get a third-party way in anyway. I think it's really interesting. It's Apple again committing to sport, which, as you know, I've been a topic I've obsessed over for quite a while. Your point about not being interesting is a one to unpack slightly, because, as I say, I'm not a huge F1 fan. Part of the reason is for the last few years, there has only been one winner. It has got quite dull and repetitive. Obviously, they're hoping to shake that up. I haven't watched F1 since the absolute robbery of Lewis Hamilton during the COVID years and that disgrace. But anyway, that's the sporting take on it, which I do think plays into how interested people will be on Apple TV. There's also an interesting element to this that I want to run by you. So we talked last week about Major League Soccer, didn't we? And how previously you used to have an additional subscription and now you don't. As I understand it, you don't need another subscription to watch the Formula One. So it looks like Apple has learned from that mistake, if I can put it that way.
Especially given, again, I feel like I have to do a disclaimer, not giving any disrespect to anyone. But Formula One, from my perspective anyway, as a casual sports fan, I'm only enthusiastic about one and a half particular sports. F1 was always kind of, if it's on TV, I'll watch it, or if it's on in the restaurant or the bar, that's fine, but it's not something I'm just glued to the TV on. And so the idea that you would be trying to build an audience behind a paywall for something that really hasn't been that widely popular, I think you're right. I think they did. And I feel like football, English football, soccer in the U.S., still got to figure out a way to do that, is more popular and was more popular. And so it was an experiment. Can we say it failed, or they just made a different decision? Only they know. Mm-hmm. But I agree with you completely. Bring this in. Yes, it's still going to be behind an Apple paywall from the general public, but it's part of the Apple TV package, and you get a lot of other things. So I think it's a nice compromise.
Yeah. Also, we all know you have to pay subscriptions for sport. I don't think that's a big deal that you have to sign up a service to watch a sport.
At this point,
if you want to watch the NFL, if you want to watch the NFL, you have to have cable TV. Do you know what I mean? I don't think that's a problem in and of itself. I think you've hit the nail on the head, really, because this is all about growing the sport in the US. There's been some excitement, I think, around races in Las Vegas and things, but this is all. I'd be amazed if Formula One would have agreed a deal to Apple if it involved another additional layer of subscription.
Agreed.
I just don't think they would have done that.
Yeah. Well, and you made a point earlier that I wanted to come back to as well, that if you can watch the race in the F1 app, as opposed to an Apple TV app, but you still have to have the Apple TV subscription. I would be really interested in knowing, okay, how are they handling announcers? How are they handling, because I think to take the words right out of your mouth, I think you said they can skin it any way F1 wants to, and Apple will probably have some say in it, but it maybe makes it even more interesting depending on the two different views, and especially since it's a multinational sport, that it could be skinned different ways for different audiences.
Well, you know what we'll have to do, Chuck? You're going to have to log in to the F1 app next race. You're going to have to log into the F1 app with your Apple TV subscription and tell us all how it was. I'm going to set you some homework.
Oh, that's great. Thank you very much. It's just what I need.
A pleasure, my friend.
Oh, but hey, I do want to bring up one other thing that is kind of unusual for us to do here. But again, I was becoming enthusiastic about F1. There's a business podcast I subscribe to called Acquired. And this is something where they go deep into history or strategies of a particular business. The spring 2026 episode they just released about a week and a half, 2 weeks ago now, is dedicated to F1, Formula One. And I'm going to tell you that if you have even a passing interest, I would encourage you to listen to this. Now, I've got to give you a fair warning. The podcast is 4.5 hours long. Okay, yes, I know, Charlotte, 4.5 hours. But the backstory behind F1, I had no idea was this wildly fascinating evolution. And the backstory is better than most novels I've read, because it's not nice, polite things. There are a lot of really questionable, shaky things that have built F1 into what it is. And that's not disparaging. It's just the way things were working, how seat of the pants some of the organization was run. Absolutely fascinating. And it does not, 4.5 hours went by like that for me. So, obviously I was listening to it in bits and pieces, but still it was fascinating. So there will be a link in the show notes. Check it out if you're so inclined. But it gave me such an amazing backstory that now I'm even more enthusiastic about learning more about F1 and maybe catching some of the races.
This show is not and will never be 4.5 hours long.
Yeah.
We have a strict cutoff at 4 hours.
Exactly.
Here's my fun bit for you. No, I want to tell you one fun bit about F1 coverage here in the UK, and then we wrap up. So F1 coverage here used to be on the BBC. There's radio coverage of the BBC as at the moment. It's not on, as I said, it's on Sky TV here. The song that they use as introduction is The Chain by Fleetwood Mac. But they only use that middle bit. I'll send you a clip. It's utterly brilliant. It is done to perfection. That's how most people... That's how I got to know the song The Chain, from this radio coverage. And it's done with perfection. It's totally associated with that song here in the UK. So maybe Apple can get involved in that as well.
That's fascinating. The Fleetwood
It's
Mac
amazing. I'll send you the link.
That's the last band I would have ever thought that F1 would have chosen.
No, but think about the bit of the song.
Yeah, okay.
It's the middle bit.
Yeah, okay. Okay,
Anyway, I'll send it to you. We'll put it in the show notes. There'll be a clip somewhere on YouTube of the BBC doing it.
Please.
Oh, well, that was fun. We've gone from Roku to racing.
Yeah. And next week we'll move to the next letter in the alphabet.
Exactly.
Charlotte, earlier you mentioned that you were talking about your book, and I think we definitely have to read that. I want to read the book, but I want you to tell us about the book.
Yeah, it's all about TV and streaming. I just got nominated for an award, which is very exciting. Forward, which is a publication that reviews independently published books, i.e. books published by publishers that are not the big 3 or 4 publishers in the world, the Penguins or whatever. My book is out with the lovely Kogan Page. They nominated me for their best book of 2025 in the technology and science section. So I'm very thrilled about that. Thank you to them. That was some exciting news on Thursday night that I got. It's about TV and streaming and all the way that has developed. As you might imagine, there's quite a few references to Apple in there. Other stuff from me, if you want, you can head over to theedition.net, and there's all sorts of stuff about the world of the crossover of culture, media, and sport, which is kind of what we talk about here as well. Chuck, what about you? How can people get even more Chuck Joyner in their life?
So I don't know if they need it, but if you really want it, you can find everything I do at MacVoices.com. And on the socials, I am at Chuck Joyner. And you will see us again next time here on TV Plus Talk. Thanks, Charlotte. Visit MacVoices.com for show notes and to connect with Chuck on social media. Get involved in our Facebook group or like our Facebook page, and get more out of your Apple tech with MacVoices Magazine, free on Flipboard and on the web. And if you find value in it all, consider supporting us through either our Patreon campaign at patreon.com/MacVoices, or by making a one-time donation via the PayPal link on our front page and in the show notes of each episode. You will join these fine people who help bring you Mac Voices. Advertising handled by Backbeat Media at backbeatmedia.com. Bandwidth provided by CashFly at cashfly.com.